By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. 2024 is not here yet, but I'm throwing out a few things to think about in the next few months leading up to that year. It's just something to keep in the back of your mind. It's more of an overview of where things could possibly head and hopefully give you a better outlook on the things you can do right now to start preparing for it. This is Urban Sentinel. Let's get into it. First up, financial economic downturn. Let the rain pour down. Our national and global economy is still struggling to recover. Continued conflicts across multiple regions and involving many nations will further strain any true economic recovery that we can hope for. Many countries presently are on some verge of financial collapse or into a severe austerity direction, really cutting back and pulling it in. Saving for a rainy day or saving for a tsunami, getting yourself financially stable is one of the key things you need to start looking at, because you're either going to have to tread water or you're going to have to swim to shore to get to safety. The financial turmoil that is coming forward as this year ends and the new year begins is something that's going to flood across multiple planes within any economic region that you can think of. There's not one single area that won't be affected, and everything within the path of that tsunami and everything that gets left behind in the wake is going to be completely changed as we move forward. Number two, Eastern European conflict. It ain't over till it's over. The Russia-Ukraine conflict that's going on is without a doubt going to be continuing forward, even if it gets to a point where one side clearly and definitively wins by attrition. The conflict itself won't end for several decades, because it's going to involve a much broader and much deeper level within not just that Eastern European section and not even just Europe as a whole, but as it affects all of the rest of the world. Even with the lingering effects of something like that going on, the continued increase of support from many nations for one side or the other side is going to cause people as a whole, there's going to be a price to pay. There's always going to be something at the end of that line that has to be taken into account. And both sides and all the parties involved, sooner or later, there's going to be a balance sheet, a reckoning as to who did what and who supported what. And you're going to see a dramatic shift in the terms of the business as usual on the global level to a new format and new design of how do you rectify the things and the imbalances that went on. Number three, Asia and the South China Sea conflict. As they say, a watch pot never boils until it boils over. China's going to make a move on Taiwan without a doubt, and it's going to take definitive steps into getting that set up. Many of these can be viewed from the perspective of what America is doing presently or at the time leading up to it. If we're distracted here with domestic issues in our upcoming election and we're too spread thin in international affairs going on in the Middle East, going on in Africa, going on just south of our border throughout the rest of lower North America, Central and South America, that may be the opportunity for China to then make a single strike move into Taiwan to seize the area. And while we have forces and plans laid out, it still comes down to a matter of allocating the resources, moving the manpower, getting the machinery that we need up and running to effectively hop into another war. Number four, energy versus environment, resource restrictions. We want to have our cake and eat it too, but we don't want to break any eggs. We don't want to use any butter. We don't want to waste any milk. We don't want to get our hands dirty and messy in that process. And that's where we're running into. The ideal of a cleaner, brighter, greener future is fantastic. But the process to get to that point is where we are at a great divide. You can't have the new shiny toy without first getting your hands dirty and rough and getting in and doing the work. So mining, drilling, refining, all these things that we're being told are negative, things that should be left behind, are actually the basis to which you achieve that newer, brighter, more environmentally friendly future. There's going to be greater shifts and changes on how our economies work. There's going to be new developments and in some cases almost a retro rollback to things that were once forgotten are now being brought up again and renewed, just given a brand new coat of paint slapped on there and pushed out to the public as if to say, oh, this is something new that we've just created versus this is something that we were doing before that actually worked and we thought we could do better. But now we're going to repackage it and play it off as if it's a brand new concept. So with that going on, you're going to have more legal wrangling going on. You're going to have more rules, regulations. You're going to have different companies and different corporations and different politicians and policies all vying for control to be the leader of the pack when it comes to that next new idea that'll take us forward by leaps and bounds. Number 5, political discourse versus civil unrest. A house divided cannot stand, plain and simple. As long as the existential threat that is going on presently against American democracy, as long as that still exists and as long as we are still continued to be polarized and divided, in many cases so extremely beyond what would be considered reasonable comprehension, America is not going to be able to hold itself together. We have to pull together in that aspect to start to fix anything. It does no good to have a hole in the ship and one person's bailing water out, tossing it to the port side, the other person's bailing with water out, tossing it to the starboard side, and they're both just refilling the boat, same as usual, going back and forth. That is something that in these next coming months, especially as we get into the 2024 election period, you're going to see sharper divides amongst certain groups on both sides, and you're going to see almost a coalescence of people moving and shifting because more people are starting to realize that their favorite politician and their favorite political party really isn't doing anything in their best interest to help them. They are just simply kicking that ball back and forth across the field, each one of them claiming that they're going to score that next big victory, but each one of them at the same time ensuring that the game keeps going into overtime and you have no choice but to sit and wait and watch. From this point moving forward, chaos and cautious security are on the minds of everyone. There is a lot going on when it comes to the individual liberties. In the end, there can only be one, is the mindset that you can only have one single train, one single frame of thought, one single outcome from one single input. The scales are unbalanced and they are going to remain so, but we are at a point where the individual liberty, that right to exist, to do no harm to others and yourself, is slowly being challenged and to one extent being forced to those who would rather maintain a level of strict control across the area to ensure that there's a balance of safety within that. And while everyone should have the right to be safe, to be free from harm, imposing a broad blanket or broad stroke brush across the whole of society does not lead to that individualism that we as a country are known for and pride ourselves upon. It becomes a group collective, which then is controlled by a much smaller and smaller and smaller top-down situation, where now the greater good is decided upon by that minute few, that elite sitting on the top, making that decision about who gets to do what and when. The core issues that we often see being pushed to the forefront are standing on the basis, the very foundation of everything that our Constitution, our rights are built upon. But it's now being torn and twisted and rearranged as if to say you can have one, but you can't have the other. And it is not an impossible thing to do. It's simply a matter of being willing to accept the balance, but understand that with that balance, it is a constant give and take, not a take and never get back. And that's the difference there. Giving a little, knowing that it's still yours and you get something back, is completely different than having it taken from you, never to be returned again. So with that, many pathways exist, many choices, many decisions are going to be made, and you have to look at first what is going to work best for you. And then you need to look at, in the plausible reality of things, what is going to be best as a whole going down the road for everyone else. How is this going to flow as we move forward into 2024? But that's all I got for now. So I'll catch you in the next one.